When the judge read the last line, I finally realized one number in the ruling was wrong. $30,000 exactly. The exact amount still sitting untouched in the last surviving corner of my account. It was also the amount my doctor said could keep me alive for maybe 3 more months. No one in the courtroom looked at me while the clerk kept typing without expression or hesitation. My father leaned sideways, speaking softly to someone else, like everything had already been arranged beforehand. I was not angry then, only slightly dazed, like I had misunderstood something obvious and important. I even wondered whether I had read the room wrong or misunderstood the judgment itself. 3 years after cutting ties with them, they dragged me into civil court over support obligations. In America, that kind of lawsuit was not even unusual, unless you saw the report. The diagnosis was still inside my bag, folded neatly, like something waiting for the right moment. When I walked out of the Chicago courthouse, the wind hit harder than I expected. I stood on the steps, staring at the ruling. It's laid out clean, logical, almost offensively fair. It looked cleaner than any of the people who had signed their names on it. "Drink something," my mother said, holding out a thermos as if nothing had happened today. I did not take it, but she caught my wrist before I could step away. Her hand was steady, the same way it had been during my college applications years ago. I looked down at her fingers, at the hand I knew too well already. When I was little, she grabbed me because she was afraid I might fall. Now she was holding me because she was afraid I might leave for good. "Let go," I said, and she did not loosen her grip at all. So I pulled my hand away and wiped it across the sleeve of her coat. She froze for a second, like she could not believe I would do that. I looked up and saw my father smiling a short distance away from us. His arm was around Gujo, and Gujo was holding the missing couplet. That was when I realized the thermos had never actually been meant for me. I slammed it onto the ground before anyone could say another careful, rehearsed word. I had planned to tell them everything, calmly, without sounding desperate, weak, or like I needed pity. That I had kidney cancer, and those $30,000 were my only treatment money. I had even practiced how to say it, carefully, so it would sound controlled. But I never got the chance, because the wind carried their voices toward me first. "The dowry can come from that money," one of them said without lowering their voice. "Perfect," the other answered, and that one word settled everything inside me forever. I stood there and understood something I should have understood much earlier than this. I had not been abandoned. I had been used, deliberately, repeatedly, and with perfect calm. That $30,000 was not money anymore. It was simply my life, assigned another purpose. My mother kept urging me to come home, speaking gently, like anything could still be repaired. For one brief moment, I almost wondered whether I had remembered everything incorrectly. Whether they had really just been helpless, trapped, forced into choices they never wanted. "The last time you cared this much," I said, "I spent 5 years in prison." Her breathing caught, but she still would not look directly at my face. "And the time before that," I continued, "I lost one of my kidneys." Her face went pale, but her hand remained on me like nothing had changed. That was when I finally understood the truth in the clearest possible way. She had always known. She had simply kept choosing, and I was never selected. I did not want to say anything else, not to her, not ever again. So I asked the system inside my head, would parents there choose me first? The system answered yes, and that was enough for me in that moment. I stepped forward into traffic without stopping, the lights green, the engines already rushing toward me. But I did not die because she caught me and dragged me backward violently. This time, her hand was shaking, her nails digging through my sleeve hard enough to sting. She cried, cursed, and accused me of trying to threaten her with something cruel. I did not explain, because she had never listened to any explanation from me. She asked whether I had a heart, as though she still deserved an answer. I looked at the blood on her hand and suddenly felt strangely calm inside. "Do not stain my clothes," I said, and she stared at me blankly afterward. That was when I understood I had not changed nearly as much as she believed. I had simply reached a point where I no longer needed anything from her. She dragged me into the car and said we were still going to the wedding. I did not resist, because by then it all felt like the same room. Outside the window, Chicago lights slid backward in long streaks, like time trying to reverse. But nothing was changing. Not really. Not in any way that mattered anymore. She made calls the whole drive, arranging, explaining, covering things, speaking with perfect composure again. She was always like that, processing feelings quickly, then keeping only what remained useful. The wedding hall was bright enough to expose every expression before anyone tried hiding it. When I stepped inside, people were already turning toward me, already whispering my story. "That is him, right? The one who went to prison," someone asked nearby. "How does he still have the nerve to show his face here?" another said. No one asked why, because they did not need truth, only a version that worked. And in every version they preferred, there was never any room left for me. Gujo stood on stage, looking polished, spotless, like he had never touched anything dirty. Suking stood beside him, and the second she saw me, her face hardened. "Some people ruin their own lives," she said, then returned just to ruin others. Several guests nodded immediately, and a few even laughed under their breath afterward. That was when I realized they were not ignorant. They simply preferred convenience over truth. So I walked forward and slapped her across the face with everything I had left. The sound cracked through the hall, and the entire room fell silent for 1 second. Gujo told me to apologize, so I answered him by punching him squarely instead. The champagne tower collapsed, glass exploding across the floor in sharp, glittering pieces everywhere. This time nobody laughed, not even the people who had laughed 1 second earlier. My father rushed over and knocked me down before anyone else could get involved. "Look at yourself," he shouted, like I had become something separate from their making. Lying there, I almost laughed because what I had become was entirely their work. He told me again to apologize, and I said yes in a quiet voice. Then I sat up slowly while everyone watched, waiting for the script to continue. I lowered my eyes and saw the broken glass scattered beside my knees. It was transparent, clean, almost beautiful, just like the court ruling from earlier. I picked up one piece and felt no shaking in my hand at all, because in that second, I understood with absolute clarity what would always happen. They would never stop using me. Not while my body was still available to them. My reputation, my past, my health, my life, everything could still be repurposed. I looked up and saw them waiting for my apology like machinery awaiting its command. I smiled once, very slightly, and then drew the glass across my skin. It did not hurt much at first. It only felt terribly, impossibly quiet instead. When the blood came out, it was darker than I thought it would be. People screamed, chairs scraped backward, and several guests stumbled away from where I sat. My father froze where he stood, like the scene had broken somewhere inside him. My mother rushed over then, truly panicked, truly terrified, maybe for the first time. She pressed hard against my hand and kept repeating that she was sorry now. Her voice was shaking, breaking apart. But I could not hear her clearly anymore. I only looked at her and felt how impossibly far away she had become. It was like a sheet of glass had finally sealed itself between us forever. So she could be afraid after all. Just never. Not once, because of me. The lights were still bright, and the room was still full of people watching. This time every single eye in that hall was fixed directly on me. But by then, finally, completely, and irreversibly, it was already far too late.